Yeah, so I'm John Paszkiet, and I'm the executive director of Greater Impact. And kind of my whole life, I've been kind of watching the community and watching around how people are serving one another, and always been interested in like making sure that people are getting the help that they need. When somebody's in a desperate situation, maybe I see somebody broke down on the side of the road. I've always had this longing to go and help them out. And so, really, before Greater Impact even got started, about 4 years before we got started, we just started doing that. I was still working a full-time job, and I started getting other volunteers or like-minded people together, and we were going out and trying to help people with whatever needs they might have or however we could help them out. So one thing kind of led to another, and after doing this kind of work for like 4 years and doing tons of different stuff, there became kind of an obvious need to kind of create its own 501c3, or what we were doing to make a greater impact in our community would maybe have the opportunity to become its own 501c3. And so what we did was we created the 501c3 because there was people who were interested in maybe supporting what we were doing financially, or there were people, so maybe some grant opportunities that we heard about and things like this, where we really wanted to help the community be able to support the work we were doing. Volunteerism has always been a big part of who we are, but then also to qualify for foundations to be able to give us grants and things like that, we really needed to become an official 501c3. So through that heart of service, really for those kind of 4 years before we became an official 501c3, we actually started with that momentum and continued on with that momentum. And so that's how we got started.
And so, throughout the life of Greater Impact, you've done a few different things. Now we've kind of landed on this great need of recovery services here in Bozeman. Can you talk a little bit about what led us there, what recovery means to you and to our community?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when we first started Greater Impact, we just kind of set out with this heart to serve wherever we could, like wherever the greatest needs were. We were wanting to go to wherever the greatest needs were. At the time, we kind of narrowed it down to like these three things. We were like, okay, financial coaching. We know a lot of people are having a hard time with their finances, and they just would really, appreciate and benefit through some financial coaching. So that was one of our first programs. And then we were also helping people fix their cars, because at that time, there was a lot of people, if their cars broke down, they weren't able to get to work. We're, looking at, okay, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? That kind of thing. And then we were running into a lot of widows and single moms and stuff at the time that, needed some repairs on their house, whether it was a siding repair, a skirting repair, maybe a hole in a floor. So we started doing those kind of things to help out with the needs that we really knew of. And over time, kind of this recovery need, actually only a couple years into Greater Impact, we started seeing this need for recovery from drugs, alcohols, and drugs and alcohol, and a whole bunch of other hurts, habits, and hangups. We saw this need that was like destroying people's lives, and we felt this compassion to help them with that. So that's kind of how we got started into recovery, was just kind of the people we were working with kind of had this common thing going on in their lives that just needed some help. And so over time, Greater Impact started out, that when we started out in recovery, there was like 3 organizations really in town that were doing a lot of stuff: Alcohol and Drug Services, Alive Again Recovery, and then ARC, what we were doing. And over time, those other organizations have shut down. So now Greater Impact finds itself in this spot where we've been doing recovery-related work for like 7 years. And we're really one of the only ones in the community that's doing anything with kind of that lived experience and that peer-to-peer support in terms of like really trying to serve people. And out of that, too, have come our sober living homes and Recovery Point.